evensong, and I discovered that that hasn't been done a great deal in recent times, and that might be something very much to be thought carefully about. But we're also thinking of, so how can we do Sunday evening services? There is actually, and it may surprise you, an enormous treasury of liturgy for a Sunday evening. Many of you probably know Compline. There's of course evening prayer, the service for the evening that's in our prayer book. And there are other traditions that have very interesting and valuable things to take a good look at. And so we're at that point right now of just going all over the place, just looking at things. I've looked at more liturgies than I have since seminary, probably. And we're working on a principle of, let's start with something that's simple, and if it works and it's appropriate, to build on it, rather than to create something that is very complicated and may be quite wonderful, but may turn out to be impractical for one reason or another, and then to have to scale back. That seems to me like a sad way to go about it. So we will be starting with a service for the evening that's very similar to what you may know from your experience of Compline, but it comes from the original Thèse office book. And the only reason why I should be looking at that is that I spent a good chunk of time in 1965, can you imagine, there, and I picked up this office book. And so I thought, well, I'll try this out on Kyle and John, and they thought it's very similar to Compline as we know it, but just a little bit different, so you don't go through the service on autopilot. I think that's can be the kiss of death about worship, is that we just start at the beginning and zombie our way through the whole thing. So this will sort of catch you here and there, but not in ways that would make you distressed or other feelings about worship. So that's where we are. It's going to be a process that'll go on until we wind up in heaven, really, because change in liturgy and re-looking at liturgy is something that is an ongoing thing. And then because Kyle is a part of it, that liturgy and music and making use of the enormous resources of the musicians in the cathedral. I mean, they have done legendary work during COVID times, but they are ready to sing hallelujah in every possible way. And I want to help that if I can. And so Kyle and I are thinking along those lines as well. Of course, all under the aegis of John, whose job, just to remind you as an interim, his job is to try new things that might work, things that would never work, but you need to see that they won't work. And to use those things so that when the new dean comes, then the new dean has something upon which to work and doesn't have to do that kind of thing and take time out of his or her deanship doing what we can be doing now. So I'm going to stop because I think I've said just about everything I know. And if you have any questions, ask me now, or, you know, I'm not going anywhere. Well, actually, I am going in somewhere for the next 5 weeks, but basically not. And, you know, ask me and give me any thoughts you may have. Liturgy isn't something done by this small group of, you know, church musicians and priests. It's the work of everybody. And that's, to me, very, very important. So I'll stop. And Abby, I pass the baton back to you.
Thank you, Perrin. I will let Kyle, our canon for music in the dark,
yes,
give his piece.
Canon in the dark. That's me.
In the dark.
I assure you that I'm wearing something very festive. It really is. I was really proud of myself at the darkness of the morning, and I'm smiling. So it's really great to see all of you. In addition, let me just clarify that the plan is for our liturgies, our regathering liturgies, to begin on Sunday, May the 2nd. And Sunday morning will look schedule-wise exactly as it has pre-COVID. A liturgy at 7:45, a liturgy at 9 o'clock, and a liturgy at 11:15. And then our service for the evening will be at 6 p.m. And we're going to begin with this liturgy that Perrin was describing, which really is beautiful. I'm very excited about that and what possibilities will come out of it. And then very occasionally, I think that we're going to begin to offer evensong. And when the full choir can resume gathering, which will be sometime in the fall, we can occasionally insert a good old-fashioned Episcopal Anglican evensong with choir singing, which I'm very much looking forward to. I think that that is a great opportunity for us. But the morning schedule will remain the same: 7:45, 9, and 11:15. The 7:45 and 11:15 liturgies will be in the nave, and I'll let Abby describe at some point how that will work by way of reservations and what COVID protocols will be looking like as well inside. The 9 o'clock liturgy will be out of doors, very much like our Blessing of Animals liturgy, with a wonderful committee that is working very hard on that. And so I think at this point, Abby, if it's okay, why don't we pass it on to the 9 o'clock committee to make a report on what the plans are, which I think is very exciting for what that service will look like out of doors.
Great. Good morning, everyone. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Heather Vaughn, and I've been attending All Souls for about 10 years. And I'm the facilitator of the 9 a.m. gathering committee. And I'm very excited to do this, and I'm very excited to work with my committee and everyone. This is a great opportunity. One of the things that we sort of hold as we are making plans is that, John brought this up in our initial sort of big gathering meeting when he was telling us, is that whatever protocols or guidelines, and if there's a range of protocols or guidelines, we're always going to go for the one that is safest and the one that's the most conservative. We want to keep everyone safe. So as we're making decisions, that's going to be the basis at first. And then the second, maybe not in order of importance, but the second one is we're really looking at May through June. And then as we get the 9 a.m. service going, we'll evaluate and reevaluate. We're going to try and think of everything, details and everything that is needed. But we know going in that something is going to either go sideways or we're going to miss something. So the idea is to hear your feedback and to talk with each other and make corrections if they're needed. So I think that's just sort of a pre-disclaimer that not everything is going to be perfect. Some of this is a little bit of Zen navigation, and we're open and we're going to move through it. So when my group met, what we really have been working on are some of the bigger questions, and one of the words that I used was triage. So what are the things that we need to triage first? So what came up in our committee, which impressed me because I hadn't thought of it, was what about insurance? What sort of the guidelines with that? And John communicated back to me that we're all good with that. So as long as we list publicly all of the guidelines and explanations, then in terms of insurance, we're okay. So that was great. And then the second thing that we came up with that was the most important was the sound system for outside. And David Fortney was kind enough last week to test the sound system out in front of the parish hall, and everything, he said, and David, please, if I leave something out, please interrupt and make sure I say everything correctly, but everything is working. He indicated the sound from the highway, there was sound from the highway, but then on Sunday morning at 9, perhaps that would not be an issue. And the idea is that we may test the sound system to ensure, from different, we have several people on the grounds, and we test to make sure we all can hear. So that's probably the next to do, is just see what it sounds like and the placement there. The third consideration that we came up with, and for lack of a better word, I'm calling them pods. So for example, at 9 a.m., whoever's made the reservation for the 9 a.m. service will be given a pod or an area to sit in with their family or themselves. And what does that pod look like? So one of the initial ideas, because another parish is doing it, was umbrellas. Highland Brewery, I think it's Highland Brewery, they're doing something with hula hoops or a hula hoop looking thing. So there's all kinds of ideas. So one of the things we decided as a group that was perhaps umbrella is not a good idea for a variety of reasons. So one thing that came up was, at least initially, in terms of setting aside the pods, it should be something that's very simple to set out. Perhaps parishioners not be in charge of setting it out, but it's something we pre-set out. And it could be anything from like the flags like we see at the art weekend in August, to maybe the hula hoop things, but that is a decision. We can make a recommendation as a group, but the steering committee, there's an executive steering committee that gets funneled through decisions and questions, and they'll make the final decision. And some of it, I think, requires a little bit of practice and just accessibility to whatever. And then the final big triage or question is signage and placement and wording. What areas need to be sectioned off? Like, for example, the playgrounds, probably there'll be some kind of very invitational roping that says, no playing on the playground. Exits, aisles, entrances need to be coordinated, and then the welcome table. So those were our big questions of what we felt like the decisions needed to be made first in recommendations. So our group is working on that. And then, and then we started batting around just other questions or ideas were put on the table. So one of them was about weather. And one of the suggestions, which might be the sanest one, is if yesterday it was pretty much sure yesterday was going to be a rainy day and a nasty day. So if there is a Sunday where that prediction is pretty much true, the idea would be that the 9 o'clock service would just be canceled. We don't want people on church grounds. There's an extra danger there. There are some things with what we are doing. We don't all just have to worry about COVID. There are other safety issues to consider. Miranda is kindly looking into different ways of posting weather and talking about the weather, alerting about weather. But the current idea is that if there's going to be a day like yesterday, we would just not have the 9 o'clock service for safety reasons. And so what I asked the committee to do for this week, and hopefully we meet this week one evening, is then start talking about the details, like what about the pods, what should we look at and explore, and start calling and figuring out about the pods to give a recommendation to the steering committee, and any other details. And when I stop talking, I will put my email in the chat for Abby, and I don't know how that I'll say it out loud as well, but I'd like very much for you, and then if you speak with other parishioners, to share my email with other parishioners, so that if you have ideas, questions, worries, you think of the minutest detail. I think what impressed me most when the 10 of us gathered the week before last, I had in my head, of course, several things that I thought to think about, but then when other people started speaking, it's so phenomenally great to have other ideas and what to think about. So I would be grateful for any of your worries, your suggestions, preferences. Obviously, we can't do everything because we're erring on the side of the most caution and the most safety, but it's good to have those ideas, and I can give them up to the steering committee. So let me give you my email address. It's HKVaughn, and it's VAUGHN @gmail.com. And I'll put it in the chat as well, so Abby can distribute it, and email me 82 times if you want. And for those of you that are on the committee that I'm heading, if I left you out, it was not on purpose. I have gotten older all of a sudden, and I have no memory. So and I can't figure out Google Docs very well. And I just figured it out this morning. So if you're like, why didn't I get I promise you I'm working through it. So be patient with me. I'm good at taking notes on paper. But Google Docs, not so much. So anyway, I think that's everything. I'm sure after we hang up, I'm going to think of something, but definitely ask Abby questions in the chat if you feel like I've left something out, and certainly my committee remind me if I did, but I think that's everything from me.
Heather, I see Abby did put your email up in it, but you can also rename yourself your email address.
Cool. Thank you, Heather. Yeah, so folks, just if you have any thoughts, comments, suggestions, questions, just send them to me in the chat. I'm watching the chat. And I'll go ahead and turn it over to Helene and Carol, who are co-chairs of the COVID protocol group.
Hi all, I'm Helene, and Carol and I have been working together. Carol has graciously said I could do most of the talking, and she's going to keep an eye on me to make sure that I don't go over too much with anything. So we, for some reason, agreed to come up with how to follow COVID protocols that are changing on a regular basis. So what we started with is looking at the CDC guidelines, which I found out this week changed for cleaning. So that adds excitement to when you are making recommendations for what somebody else can do. So piggybacking on what Heather said, that just having patience with the COVID protocols that we eventually recommend to John and the steering committee and vestry, and being open to what we are recommending. Again, it's going to be masks, hand washing, staying away from your friends. So, those aren't going to, we're not going wild with anything whatsoever. And having some flexibility. You can have a fantastic policies and procedures in place, and then something comes into play that you just cannot foresee, and you're going to have to go back to your patience, your openness, and your flexibility to work within it. Meaning, what if the variants increase? What if our numbers spike? What if we have all these great things in plan, and who knows what else happens? So just, we ask for your patience with that, and your flexibility as we come up with ideas and plans to move forward. We have three areas we're working with. The first week, we talked about cleaning, disinfection, and ventilation. And that is where the CDC recommendations changed last week. So there you go. A little less stringent. But again, it's going to be different from outside than it is for inside. It's going to be different for high touch areas versus low touch areas. How is all that going to be implemented? How is it not going to be implemented? And we honestly don't have a clear vision of that at this point because of all the details that go into that. This week, we will be talking about how to promote social distancing. And then the following week, we're going to be talking about monitoring, preparing, and if we have to close. And all this is going to tie into how the signing up goes, which is going to be part of Abby, which is we're going to have things on our website. And so there's a lot of moving pieces that go with all of this. So we will make our recommendations to John and the steering committee, and we will research things the best we can. And then they will all make the final decision as to exactly how things go. So I did put my email as my name. So if you have anything that you would like to ask me directly, feel free. Our group meets Wednesdays at 6 on Zoom for 40 minutes because I have the free account. And we're trying to be really focused each week. So basically what happens is we have a topic, and then a small number of people will work on that topic for the week, and then they're going to bring back their information. So we don't have all 10 of us looking at the same thing. We have 3 to 4 people we'll be looking at social distancing this week, and it's Kathy, Bob, and Bill are looking at it. So then that group brings the recommendations to us, we discuss it, and then from that I come up with recommendations that I give, or Carol and I come up with recommendations we give to John. So Carol, would you like to add anything to that? Or let's see, Bob, or well, start with Carol. Oh, you have to unmute, bottom corner.
There we go. Yeah, I was still muted. Sorry about that. I just want to say I'm Carol Hudson. My background is microbiology, medical technology. I've been at All Souls about 3 years, for anyone who doesn't know me. I sing in the choir, and it's just a wonderful, lovely experience to be part of All Souls. I can't tell you how much this place and this community means to me. One of the things I've been trying to do is make sure we're really following the science. I've spent way too much time in the past year, or a little more than a year, reading about this virus, reading about treatments, reading about how to prevent the spread of the virus. And I felt like I had so much knowledge piled into my head that I needed to volunteer for something to help with regathering. So that's where I'm coming from. So if you have questions about science issues or where we're coming from on a protocol, please, I've added my email as others have done. Feel free to send a message to Abby or send a message directly to me, and I will do my best to answer. And I also promise that if I don't know the answer, I will research it and get back to you.
She is awesome at researching, awesome at giving the science behind what is going on.
Thank you.
And so I think that's all I have, unless somebody has a burning question they want to bring up right now, or back to you, Abby.
Thanks. So we do have a few questions already, so I'll just dive into those, and those might bring up more questions. But first, before I bring these up, we touched on the reservation system. So that is something that I will be looking into a lot this coming week and this week. Really, I really need to make a decision on what platform I'm going to use. There's been lots of good suggestions. There's Sign Up Genius, there's Eventbrite, there's actually some church specific ones out there. I'm part of a Facebook group of Episcopal communicators. Yes, it's very exciting. So I have a couple that I want to look into from that group. It has dawned on me how important that piece is going to be, just because it's going to need to be easy but comprehensive, and be able to tie into our website easily. So there's a lot to consider there. So I will be reaching out to certain folks who are on this screen to ask little questions, and as I'm going through that, but hope to find a system that works. We're unsure right now. Of course, we've discussed, how will we kind of make sure everybody gets a turn, because obviously capacity is limited. We're working on that, and some of these, I'm also trying to figure out, there's a platform that allows for rotation of some sort. So that, as you can tell, it's all still kind of percolating up here. So I will be working on that, and just stay tuned for more details. And in advance, thank you for your patience in whatever we choose. And I promise there will be some sort of a tutorial video of me showing people how to use it. So our first question, will there be Taizé music at Sunday evening? I never know how to say that word. Will there be Taizé music at the Sunday evening service? Kyle.
The answer to that question is yes, there will be. Each of the sung liturgies, which will be 9, 11:15, and 6 p.m., will have 1 to 2 cantors at them who will be distanced from the rest of the group. I am following closely through my professional organization called the Association of Anglican Musicians. Us Episcopal Church musicians are all gathered in that particular group. We helped fund the study that the American Choral Directors Association did on safe singing. And we're quickly, I mean, we are closely monitoring those protocols. And I'm on a committee of musicians here in the diocese that are advising our bishop on what type of guidelines to give to the diocese. And so there will be 1 to 2 cantors in the beginning who will be doing all the singing on our behalf, both outdoors and indoors. Congregational singing is not safe at this particular point in time. And we pray for the day when that does happen again. The wonderful thing about our virtual services and our Zoom services is we've been able to either sing hymns in the space that you all can sing in the comfort of your living rooms safely with those you love and your animals, or pre-recording them for the Zoom services. And so that's really been a wonderful thing. We're just going to need to be a little careful in the beginning. And that's going to be okay, because it's going to lead us to the wonderful time when it's safe for us to sing together again. So that's the very long answer to say that yes, there will be music at the Taizé liturgy at 6 p.m. on Sunday evenings.
Thank you, Kyle. Next one is not a question, it's a suggestion. Use spray paint used for sidelines on soccer fields for the pod's demarcation. So, thank you. And then here's a question. Will you need volunteers to sign up for cleaning after indoor services, including restrooms?
I would never turn down a volunteer. Thanks.
We absolutely need volunteers for this. One of the things we've talked about more than once.
Yeah. So, again, how do we communicate that? How's all that going to come? And just so y'all know, John, we had our first official meeting this past Wednesday, and obviously John's been out of town. So we've had obviously John didn't choose to meet with us on his vacation. So we haven't, had a chance to ask for what we want, or, I've sent him emails, but there's been no communication. So yes, send me that person's name, Abby.
Yeah, I
Thank you
definitely will.
for asking. Thank you, Mark.
She's raising her hand right there.
Thank you.
Lovely lady in the blue. And just like as we're talking about this, it might be something like where there's, I don't know, there's a sign up for the service, and then there's sign up for volunteering for these spots, and all sorts of signing up. Okay, here's another question. Are we as a congregation doing anything to help people get vaccines? Is there a need to help some folks who want to get them but are unable to do so on their own? And that's an interesting question. Not that there's not an organized effort that I know of right now. But I will bring this up, to the steering committee, Kathy, and I will, I will definitely bring it up. Okay, let me see. Okay, that's just a follow-up from Martha. Thank you. Volunteers to clean up could be given priority or a condition of attending in-person service. Okay, you're willing to help with brainstorming. Thank you, Martha. Copying everything over so it doesn't get lost. Are there any other, that's the end of my list of questions for right now. So we can open it up to, just raise your hand if you have a comment or another question. Like Colleen said, this is all happening. It's kind of, it's real time, you know. I'm just watching the chat here.
If I might add in this space, as it turns out, this is kind of a united effort with Asheville churches. So First Presbyterian, Trinity Episcopal Church, Central United Methodist, and the Cathedral of All Souls are the four I know of who will all be regathering on Sunday, May the 2nd. So all the Church Street churches and us, and there may be others. I don't really know what First Baptist is doing at this point, but it appears that many of us are regathering on May the 2nd. So it's not just us. And apropos to completely nothing, Bill and Daphne, I'm sinning by looking at your front door. And if it disappears, you wake up one morning and it's gone, don't come looking at my house. I've said what I need.
Come get it, please. We want to replace it. We need more light.
Just a comment. One of the ideas that has been looked at is removing the seat cushions in the pews. So the other day I removed one of the seat cushions and sat down. They are monumentally uncomfortable. They're the wrong height. And at least for me, if I spent one Sunday in them, there would be no problem with overflow the next Sunday. So that's something to keep in mind. And also I did some cleaning. We had a wedding yesterday, so I cleaned all the pew rails and the ends, and then also spent some time cleaning the back, the seat back on one section of pews. And I figure it's less than 1 man-hour to do the whole church. So if you had 3 volunteers, you could take care of that in 20 minutes without any problem.
And just a question, I guess, for the COVID folks, or as far as prayer books, well, I guess it wouldn't be the 9:15, everything. I mean, are we going to be using prayer books, or does everybody need to buy their own prayer book? Or are we just going to put the service online and you need to bring your iPad and go use it online? Just something to think about.
That is in an upcoming topic. But for the, for the most part, no prayer books. Everything's going to be disposable. So if you want to bring your own prayer book, you can bring your own prayer book, from your own Bible. We'll still have leaflets with things in it. I'm not sure if it might be this week we talk about that. And anyone is welcome to join in on the Zoom with our meeting if you have, energy on a certain topic. But yeah, so prayer books are kind of like, don't touch them. They're pretty. They're decorations.
Let me add to that and to say that most of you have not been able to be in the church on Sundays when we're live streaming, or recording, but everything is in a script that we've gotten down to a science, haven't we, Abby?
Oh, yeah.
And so we're real good at creating disposable products. And so the liturgy can be in a document that, you know, in the beginning we can hand to you and then dispose of. Or, you know, what might be interesting is for you to bring your iPads and actually look at it on there. That's not something that we've discussed, but anyway, we're really good at creating those documents here. We do them every week.
Well, Abby, don't you want to print out all those bulletins for 3 services? Oh,
Right. I can't tell you how much I've missed that. So yeah, it's really been I see, Daphne, that you do have your hand up, but I'm going to, there's one question and then I'll come to you. There's just a comment on how to address pods. So this is, we have several families that have been gathering and consider themselves a pod. Are we allowing them to sit together? Also, those who are fully vaccinated, can they sit together?
In our discussion, both in our small group and the larger group, it seemed like pods were going to be a certain, all of them were going to, it didn't matter if you were one person or a larger family, although I think that also plays into the reservation system, but it seemed like pods were going to be all of them pretty much almost the same size, a pretty good size, because then there would also be the spacing. So I don't see at this point we're going to regulate who's sitting in a pod, but certainly if you have 20 people, you might have to, and again, this comes back to the reservation system, but it might not be that you're all sitting in that one, whatever space. You might have to sit in the pod next to the person, right? So, but I don't see in my discussions with Helene, and I don't see us regulating who's sitting in whose pod. That seems a bit much, but certainly I guess it comes down to a larger family or a larger group. You might sit beside each other or in front of each other if you want to be near each other at church, just because probably most of our pods are going to be about the same size. And again, we've got to talk with each other, and then we have to pose those questions to the steering committee and they make the final decisions. Brainstorming with you now, which might be slightly dangerous, but I see it being a little complicated, at least at first, saying, oh, well, here's a single person pod and we just have that. I see our pods being almost all universally the same size. And then the idea is that families bring either picnic blankets or quilts or your chairs, and you sit down within your pod with that. So I hope that answered. It seemed like there was a second part to your question. Did I leave something out, Abby?
It had to do with vaccines.
Also, those who are fully vaccinated, can they sit together? I mean,
This has come up a little bit in our COVID protocol group. I'm sorry, I'm just going to speak up on this one, but I think what we decided is that essentially we don't want to get into asking people whether they've been vaccinated or not. That's really not our place, nor is it. It's private information, and whether someone chooses to share that or not is their personal business and not really the business of the COVID protocol team or the reservation system to find that out. I believe at this time we decided that if you know people and you want to sit with them and you've all been fully vaccinated, right now we're not recommending that happen unless you're all family members. Is that correct, Helene? Is that what we decided?
Yes. So even though, and again, that could change as time goes by, and everyone's still going to be masked.
Right. And also it ultimately comes down to what the steering committee decides on that one, but we're not recommending that people that are not families, whether they're vaccinated or not, sit together.
Yeah. And well, yeah, for indoor, you're limited by a number anyway.
Yes.
Outdoors, obviously a little bit different. And that would be where our flexibility could come in after time. And, I think Heather said you have a May-June plan, and then that, you know, when we have more information as to how the vaccine's doing with the variants and how many of us are vaccinated and how Buncombe County's doing and what happens in the summer, then maybe that can change for the July, August idea. Again, kind of what I mentioned before, the flexibility and the openness and the patience as we move forward with all of this.
Daphne, you have a question?
Yeah, it's actually not a question, but the question has not come up yet. But I did want to reassure everyone about communion. That question hasn't come up yet, and I actually sit on the COVID protocols team as well. I am a former compliance officer, so I'm trying to make, what I bring to the group is let's make sure that we follow the rules. So just expect that communion may look very different. It has not been addressed yet. It will be addressed in 2 weeks' time on our committee. But just to reassure you all, if that's something you're thinking about, it is being addressed.
And that is fortunate. I see you, Jane. That's fortunate because someone had just written that question. How will communion be handled? So, Jane.
Yeah, this is Heather. This is for you, and I think I heard you talk about it earlier at another time. But how will you handle visitors, like tourists that come, especially at the outdoor meeting, where I guess either one, they may not have made a reservation?
For the outdoor meeting, one of the things that John has expressed, which I think is both lovely and welcoming and part of hospitality, is yes, for the 9 o'clock service anyway, which is the discussion, there will be reservations that are set aside for the stranger for any, and how many of those, that's not been decided yet, but yes, there will be for someone that walks up or someone who, there will be some set aside, there'll be whatever pods left over for those. I don't know how many, but we don't, the idea of seeing everyone gathered outside and then saying no, and also putting our ushers in a place of turning them into bouncers. We don't want to do that either, right? We want to be a place of welcoming and allowing people in as much as we can. So yes, there will be some pods set aside for people that do walk up so that they can join us.
Yeah, and I just wanted to ask you, when you say a welcome table, that you mean like a check-in? Is that okay? I just wanted to clarify.
And again, I don't know how that looks and what all that might entail, obviously, and it depends on our reservation system. Some of the discussion has been, then there's a printout of everyone that's gotten a reservation, and they check in and then they sign off so that we know they're there, that they've got their mask, and then they're assigned their pod. And then they go on, and there'll be what I have thought of for me using is that there's a certain entrance and then a certain exit, so that we're not, we've got a flow of people. So the welcome table's there, and there might be other stuff, right? There might be extra mask at the welcome table, hand sanitizer, if I don't know, right? The idea is that we're welcoming and we're giving information, and that'll be on our next meeting, sort of what's on the table and what does it look like, because we want it to be as invitational and as welcoming and as hospitable as possible.
I'm just going to throw in a suggestion. I had gone to another church where it'd be nice to have some flowers on the table, and actually the parishioners just brought, they could buy them at the store, just from their garden or something bought at the store, put it in a vase. They bring they bring the flower, one parishioner does, and then they take it away.
Nice. Yes,
or give it to somebody else.
That's a great idea.
It would be easy and uplifting.
Yes.
Thanks, Jane. We've had another very good question. Will offerings be received at all services? Martha, yes, we need to. I need to get with. That's something that we need to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, we have not discussed this specifically, but passing a plate from person to person would not be COVID friendly.
Right.
So I'm going to go out on a limb and be like, that would be a recommendation. We don't have a communal plate. Just,
Yes.
you know, obviously I'm not on the executive committee, but it will have to
Oh,
look different.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. We're going to have to reimagine how that takes place. So not sure yet, but we'll be in communication with you, Martha, about whether tellers are needed. And, you know, it may be something where we all, you know, if we're not already, all get a little more familiar with Tithely or PayPal. You know, there's a QR code, and could that be on the leaflet so people can, you know, give at the time of the offering if they like to do that. So, but thanks for bringing that up. That's another detail that needs to be worked out.
Abby, this is Daphne to help rescue you just a little bit. That's a beautiful idea about the QR code. And some other churches have actually had a repository box in a single place so that as you leave, you can offer your contribution or a single plate. We, as Helene said, we haven't teased that out exactly, and that too in common services will be addressed in 2 weeks' time. But we are thinking about that.
So it sounds like, Martha, we will need to be in communication about teller stuff, and I'll bring Margot into the loop as well. Kathy. Oh, you're muted, but I think maybe you're saying don't need to. Yeah, already answered. Good. All right. Anybody else have any wonderings, or has this stirred up any creative juices?
I'll ask a question at this point. One of the things, and I'm not sure, Helene, if it's, and Carol, if it's on the list for the next 2 weeks, is what will we do if we find out somebody who's attended one of the services tests positive for COVID?
Yeah, that is in 2 weeks.
Okay.
And we will be going over that. And we as a church can't do anything because it's confidential. And so Kathy and Kay, I'm gonna really rely on you as far as what, you know, we can do from a public health standpoint. We will obviously have the list that Abby is going to be generating with Sign Up Genius. And then that, I'm making an assumption that that list can then be provided to Buncombe County. I'm not really sure how that works. And this is where we get into the gray area, is it's going to help Buncombe County to know if people have been vaccinated.
Yeah.
So then we get into who's going to be keeper of that list, because it is confidential, but we're a church, not a hospital. So there's some things there. Like, I know I'm at a school right now, and the nurse has everybody's vaccination information, and nobody can ask you if you're vaccinated. You can offer that you've been vaccinated, but nobody can be like, hey, are you vaccinated? Because I think, you know. And also somewhere in there, we're going to have, if you've experienced these symptoms, if you have a temperature, we'll probably have a temperature take on the way in. And you're going to have to go back to that trusting with our faith community. So trusting that our neighbors didn't have a fever that morning and aren't going to come in if they've been exposed or experiencing any symptoms. We'll have to trust our neighbors on that one. So that's going to, I'm going to rely on your public health experience for that one, Kathy. So be ready.
I will.
Thank you.
I'm scanning the crowd for any other hands. Any other thoughts before we say goodbye for today?
If I just might offer my thanks and gratitude, our thanks and gratitude to Helene and Carol and to Heather for chairing these. These are very complex topics, and to Perrin for his very joyful contributions and ideas. It's really wonderful. So thanks to all of you.
You're welcome, Kyle.
Kyle, can I ask you one final question?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you have any idea when the choir might be able to return?
So, I mean, I've got an idea of when I would like the choir to return. Whether or not the protocols will allow us to do that or not will remain to be seen, but I'm thinking late September.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Might Perrin be willing to give us a closing prayer?
I think that would be lovely. Thank you for requesting that.
Got to unmute, Perrin.
You're
You're muted.
There.
It was going to be a silent prayer. No, I'm joking. The Lord be with you.
And also,
Let us pray. Oh God, you have brought us thus far through this difficult time and have given us resources in which to worship you more directly and to be with each other more directly. Give grace to those who have the responsibility to give us direction for our regathering. Give all of us patience as they give us instruction, knowing that these instructions will be refined over the course of time. And grant that in your good time, we may fully together sing your praises and sing, Alleluia, Christ is risen. He is risen indeed. Amen.
amen.
Thank you all. Have a
Thank you
wonderful
all so
afternoon.
much.